The following is a paid political program. WKRK prides ourselves in being politically unbiased. You can count on us to be fair and respectful to all political opinions. We do sell airtime to all political parties, candidates, and those who wish to discuss political issues, and we will be transparent about who is sponsoring the political program. If you wish to purchase airtime on WKRK, please call 828-837-4332 or stop by WKRK's office at 90 Tennessee Street in downtown Murphy. The following program is paid for by Palmer for Sheriff. Welcome back, Sheriff Palmer.
Good morning. How are you?
Doing great. It's a Friday morning, and we have a fishing rodeo coming up, don't we?
We do. We postponed it from last week, and we're going to do it again tomorrow. The weather was kind of cold and rainy last Saturday, so we decided to push it over a week. So if anyone hadn't got the memo, we're doing it tomorrow morning, the 14th. So be sure and come out to that Kids Day, that fishing rodeo there. Kids always love that, have a blast doing that. Typically I think in the last several years we've had probably 300 or 400 kids come out and take part of that on Saturday morning. So
do they have to register beforehand or just show up?
They can register that day. Also, if you're a child under 12, you get a free lunch while you're there, free hot dog lunch. But the Fraternal Order of Police will be there selling lunches, hot dogs, things of that nature to raise money for the FOP. So any adults that would like to buy those can, but children eat free.
All right. Well, today is Friday the 13th. Welcome back.
It is. Perfect day to be here, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
And you have a guest with you today.
I do. But before I get to the guest, just a reminder, today is the last day to switch over. If you're a Democrat, it's the last day to switch over to an independent Republican so you can vote in the sheriff's primary. Just a reminder, if you're a Democrat and after today you remain a Democrat, you can't vote in the sheriff's election. So for this year. Right. And so if you want to vote in the sheriff's election, you need to hustle on down to the Board of Elections and switch over.
And that's one thing we've been trying to stress here with all the political shows we have, because in November there will be no opposition. The sheriff's race.
I think there'll be one. Not for the sheriff. There will be no opposition for the sheriff in November. I think there's going to be only one political race in November. Will be a commission race on District 1 seat. Gary James registered as a Democrat on it, but it will be the only race in November locally.
Well, Sheriff, you're getting off cheap this year with our adadvertising bill.
Well, I don't know about that. It depends on what you classify as cheap.
Only having to do the primary election.
Milk, or I think Tim sometimes milks me like a cash cow. Sometimes trying to get more advertisement.
Try my best.
Yeah, but today we have a special guest, Mark Thigpen, my chief deputy. He has been with us since the beginning, and I'll tell you a little bit about Mark before we get started. I had actually tried before I ran for sheriff to try to get Mark to run for sheriff, and against the previous person that was in there, and Mark kept saying he didn't quite feel it, didn't think that's what the Lord wanted him to do, kind of thing. And so we prayed about it, and we talked about it, and I went to Mark one day and I said, Mark, let me ask you this. I said, if I run for sheriff and win, will you be my chief deputy? And he said, let me get back to you. And a few days later, he got back to me and he said, can I ask you one question? I said, yeah. He said, why me? I said, this is the deal. I said, when you think about it, I said, David had a Nathan in his life that would put his finger in his face and say, you're wrong. You're doing the wrong thing. You need to act different and be different. And I said, for a sheriff, that's what he needs. He needs somebody that he can trust, somebody that he's a friend with, somebody that'll be strong enough and bold enough to stand up and tell you you're messing up and you need to do this different and you're not behaving the way you should behave. And so when we had that conversation and prayed about it, he agreed to come on as chief deputy, and that's what he's been for me for the last 3 years, has been my Nathan in my life that would just sit down, have real, frank conversations and say this is kind of where we need to go, and kind of agree with me when he needs to agree with me, but disagree when we need to disagree. And so we've had a good relationship doing that. But he's not had to disagree too much, have you?
No, not a whole lot.
Not a whole lot.
Fortunately, we have the same philosophies and the same ideas, so it makes it easy. The sheriff tells me what he wants accomplished and tasks me with trying to make those things happen. And there's been a few times that we've looked at each other and he's disagreed with me and I've disagreed with him, but we have that kind of relationship that it's not personal, it's getting the job done.
Right. And talking about the goals, I think our goals have been from the very beginning is trying to do the best we can for our county and trying to create a good place in our county and trying to change the reputation that was there before I was elected. Before I was elected, there's a real disdain for the sheriff's office. There was a real bad taste in the mouth about the sheriff's office. And so that was one of the things that we wanted to do, is to bring that back to the people, and understand that the sheriff's office is not there for me, but it's there for the people. And so the decisions that we've tried to make and the things we've tried to done has been for the benefit of the county. And so I'm proud of that fact. And regardless how this election turns out, if it turns out in my opponent's favor, I can walk away saying I've done the best I could do and made the best decisions I can make. But I would really like 4 more years to do that, So I'm encouraging everybody that would to go out and vote and to help us get 4 more years.
What's the slogan on your campaign signs, and how did you come up with that?
Focused on our future. I think that's one of the things that when me and the chief both was talking about it when I was considering running, was that there was a lot of current problems that needed to be fixed, and there was a lot of current things back in 2014 that needed to be addressed. But we wanted to make decisions that would impact our future, not just what's going to happen today or this year or this budget year, but putting things in effect and putting things in motion that would benefit us 10 years from now, 20 years from now. And start putting those ideas in motion. I think one of the biggest tasks the chief come up with, right, that I put on him right on the beginning, was what we were going to do about the cars and the car situation, because we had a dilapidated fleet when we took over.
It was quite a challenge.
That was a big challenge.
Very, very much so. When we went into the first day in the office and the sheriff tasked me with that, we had an average mileage on the fleet of pushing right at 200,000 miles on average. And we've been very fortunate and successful. We've partnered with the county commissioners in working to come up with a plan to do replacements. And I think when I checked the other day getting ready for this budget, as opposed to having to go in and ask for 10 cars or 8 cars, we're down to 4 or 5, and our average fleet is around 90,000 miles now across the fleet. And we've tried to be very frugal. We've tried to wheel and deal with the various dealerships that we purchased our fleet from, and I think we've been pretty successful with getting some good, solid, fair pricing and got all of the folks in good, safe cars.
One of the things about the chief too, I always told him that whenever I go to buy another car, I want to send him and my wife to go buy it, because my wife likes to wheel and deal and haggle, and so does he. And so I think between the two of them, they could probably get me a pretty good deal on a car. So I'm going to send them the next time I buy a personal car. But no, we have tried very hard to work on the budget and keep things in order. On the sheriff's side, our budget has increased a little bit since 2014, but most of that goes because of the cars and the personnel there, and that trying to raise salaries and trying to help our employees is one of the reasons for that. But like I say, right off the bat, I think I mentioned this last week, right off the bat we cut almost $800,000 off the budget just off the top, and so we were able to reappropriate some of that money back into cars, back into personnel, back into other things that we needed to have a successful sheriff's office. But one of the things that we are constantly dealt with years ago, way back in the 90s and early 2000s, when we were on the drug task force and still battle today, is the drug situation that's in the county. We've had some things happen within the last few years that has kind of been unprecedented for Cherokee County. And one of the things was the casino coming in and bringing a whole new clientele and a lot of traffic and visitors and things like that to the county. Other businesses have come and starting new business with new employees and bringing people from out of state. And so anytime you bring an influx of people, you bring an influx of other problems and situations with that. So drugs is no exception. We've been working on that and dealing with that. And we've got just a few numbers I want to talk to you about, because people, depending on who you talk to out there, some say, well, things are getting better in the county. Some say things are getting worse. Some people think we're doing a great job. Some people think it's not so great. And so we're trying to figure out, where we actually are in the county. And one thing I found out I'd run some numbers this morning, and back in 2011 through 14, the average on drug cases made in the county was about 300 a year. That was about one a day that they were making through 2011-14. That's the previous administration. When I took over in December of 14, which 15 would have been my first year. So I've had 3 years in office. 2015, we made 480 cases. 2016, we made 853 cases. In 2017, we made 821 cases. And so you can see the amount of work that we put in, going from averaging 300 to around 700. I guess what the average is. I didn't average that out, but like I say, 16 was 853, 2017 is 821, so somewhere around 800 cases a year that we're making drug cases. And you can see the increase in the work that we've put in and trying to arrest people and put them in jail. One of the things that we constantly battle and constantly fight, especially with the public, is that the sheriff has no discretion over bonds. I mean, I can't make them get a high bond. I can't make them stay in jail if the judge sets a bond and turns them loose. I can't do anything about that. So, and I know that's a little bit different in Georgia and Tennessee, and so people coming from other states don't understand that. They think the sheriff has the power to hold somebody in jail, and I just don't have that power to do that. So once a magistrate or a judicial official signs that blue sheet and releases someone or reduces a bond, there's nothing anyone can do about that. So, those are things that we constantly have to battle and constantly have to deal with when battling drugs that are out there. But as a sheriff's office, we have to go back after it. And when they're loose, we have to go back after them again. And so it's a never-ending battle, and there's no quitting room on that. We just have to keep fighting on that.
Yeah, recently we've had one fellow that we've done 2 different trafficking cases on it, and that was some of the major comments that came up on the sheriff's office Facebook page as well as WKRK's is, wasn't he just in jail? And we have no control over that. We do recommend to the magistrate, but the magistrates have a bond recommendation sheet that they have to go by. So with this one particular case, within 3 weeks we had the same person and some associates back in jail for trafficking. So it's not that by no means that we quit once we get them arrested the first time. We head right back after them the second time and work as diligently to put them in as many times as we can, so that hopefully as we get them repeat offending, then the magistrates and the courts, the judges will up those bonds and not reduce them. So it's kind of a thing that the sheriff and I talked about the other day. It's you can relate it to playing high school or college sports. It's a game. We have to play the game the best, although we have to play by the rules where our opponent has no rules. And we try to go back and look at what we've done and look at that as a review of the game films and find the weaknesses of the opponent and go back and hit them again and go in for a win.
And one of the things that we're seeing in the county that we have a lot of comments on that you see on social media and different websites is about the fact of homeless people and finding needles in different places and things of that nature. But one of the things I want to point out about that, if you'll look on the social media sites, the same things are being posted in Clay County, they're being posted in Macon County, being posted in Graham, in Swain, in Polk County, Tennessee, Monroe County, Fannin, Union, Towns. All the counties around us are having the same issues and the same problems. And so sometimes it's easy to get tunnel vision on what's just going on in our little place here. Mm-hmm. But the situation that we have faced is not something that's unique to Cherokee County. It's something that's happening all over the country. It's happening all over our nation, all over the Southeast. And any town, any community, anywhere you go in, they're having the same issues and the same problems with this. And so we're trying to look for different ways of trying to combat the drug situation. And that's why we started developing the community aspect, the community approach of the addictive end of it. Is one of the things we had discussed this morning was the fact of the demand. And if there's a demand there, there's always going to be a supply. You can arrest as many people as you want to, but there's always going to be somebody to step back in their place and continue the supply as long as there's a demand there. And so one of the things we have done is not only working on the user end from a community aspect and trying to find some counseling and trying to help the users to get better and not be addicted and be productive. But we've also tried to go to the other end of that and look at the main dealers and the one that's supplying it. And instead of just cutting off the one that's delivering the ounce, let's look at the one that's got the multiple ounces and not stop there, but look at the one that's got the kilos and the pounds and start going after these people. Because when you cut off those people with kilos and pounds, then you got people that's distributing to all their entire area that's cutting the flow off. And one of the things that I have been big about from the beginning, and me and the chief has the same philosophy on this, is we don't care where the arrest happens. It doesn't matter if it happens in Cherokee County or in Fannin County or Polk County or Macon County. I don't care. Let's cut the supply off and try to cut the supply off to the area. And so we've been working with other agencies, working with other states, working with federal agencies, trying to develop some major cases of cutting the suppliers off. And we've actually made some progress on this in recent days and getting that done.
Quite a bit. In fact, just want to highlight one that very soon, hopefully by this afternoon, we'll be doing a press release on. But we partnered with agencies in Georgia and as well as the FBI and DEA, the U.S. Attorney's Office. And we have interrupted a major source of methamphetamine into the county. We often hear, a lot of times the sheriff hears this, especially, we don't see that you're doing anything. Well, this particular case is, the narcotics detectives have been working this case for over 2 years, so it's a very long-term investigation. It's involved undercover work, it's involved interviews and surveillance and traffic takeoffs. And just kind of a brief rundown, when we met with the federal agencies to start looking at this, we were able to identify that this particular organization had brought into Cherokee County somewhere in the area of 500 pounds of methamphetamine over a 3 or 4 year period. Looking at a street value of somewhere in the $25 million range. So this case even goes a little deeper in that our detectives were able to identify that the source of this operation was actually being run out of a prison in another state. And so, this is a prime example of our folks digging in deep, digging in hard. There's going to be a total of currently 6 federal indictments coming down for 6 people on this case. And as a result of it, we just shifted these folks, the people they were delivering to. We were already, the detectives were on top of who was in the game, who the players were, and have already targeted the next group, which is also bringing the majority of this methamphetamine out of Georgia. We just had another conference call working with multiple state and federal agencies to target those much like this. Again, though it's, these are investigations that don't happen overnight. They are truly long-term, in-depth investigations that our folks have put thousands of hours into to reach this point.
Well, you mentioned about working with other agencies, and that's kind of crucial if you're going to be working in any kind of law enforcement, especially here on the borders of Tennessee and Georgia, as well as neighboring counties in our own state. How would you define your relationship with other law enforcement agencies nearby?
I think we have a great relationship with our both state and federal and local agencies. The fact of the matter is, when we first started working this case, we contacted our DEA and FBI here in North Carolina, which is primarily based out of the Charlotte area, but has satellite offices in Asheville. And a lot of them didn't really want to get too in-depth with it because most of this was coming out of the Georgia area. We were able to contact the Georgia DEA and Georgia FBI, and through relationships with them down there, we were able to start the process and working together along with Georgia Task Force and some, I think it was the Zell Miller Task Force down there and some different people down in Georgia to help work these cases in conjunction. And the other thing about taking off some of these main dealers, like I said before, we don't care where it happens. We've had people here from Cherokee County that was taken off in Georgia, arrested down there with major loads and things that we had worked in conjunction with, but we don't get the newspaper time or the press release time up here because it happened somewhere down in Georgia. And along, we don't want that newspaper time or press release time because we don't want all of these dealers understanding how we're working together and the things that we're doing. So we're doing a lot, and we're doing a lot to keep the drugs off our street and to help our communities. But a lot of these things the public don't readily see. And so One of the things I always say too about houses and vehicles coming in and out of your houses and next door and neighbors complain about those things. A lot of times we're doing undercover work and doing traffic stops and different things off these houses, but we may not be in your front yard with blue lights on. You may not see us at the house. And especially like when we stop cars coming out of residences that were known drug houses, sometimes we do them miles down the road just so we can do that traffic stop and it's not right in that front yard to where we can build these kind of cases and develop informants and develop these things to work these kind of cases. It would have been very easy on some of these federal cases that we're working now to go ahead and do a felony possession case or a sell and delivery case and those type of cases that's ultimately going to get little or no time in jail. But our officers have been diligent about spending years and thousands of hours into these things so that we can get charges that stick. They'll be going to prison for a long time, get them in the federal system, things of that nature. And like I say, 3 years into it, we're just now coming to fruition on some of these things. And hopefully if we get another 4 years, you're going to see things like this rolling more and more often through our federal system. And that's what our goal is.
Quite often, Tim, with these types of investigations, there is very little that the public sees about them. Even recently, we were in front of the county commissioners requesting more of our narcotics undercover money, and there was a comment made in that meeting is, we would like to see where our money's going. Well, unfortunately, to be effective and to do the work that needs to be done, as the sheriff said, a lot of times we don't bring it to the public light because that hampers the investigation, hampers the operations that we're doing. So there is a huge amount of time and work that goes into what these folks are doing that they get no credit for. Quite often, as it's passed off to other state or local or federal agencies to protect what they're doing, somebody else gets the credit for it, when in fact it's been the hours and hours of diligent work that they've done that brought an arrest to fruition.
We're just kind of like I say, trying to do the best we can for our community and trying to build cases that's going to stick. I think one of the frustrations that we see a lot of times is from people is when things do get dismissed out of court, or they see things consolidated into one charge or that type of thing, and that you don't see that person go off to jail, and they might spend a few days in county jail and leave. But when we talk about things being dismissed in court and all that kind of stuff, we have to also understand is that sometimes things are dismissed for a lot of different reasons. One of the things that we want to acknowledge now is the fact of that when you look at the court dockets and you see things are dismissed, they could be dismissed for indictment. They could be dismissed to go into Superior Court for charges there. They could be dismissed because there's a federal case somewhere else that's going on, or tied in with Georgia cases and things of that nature. And so it may get dismissed out of our system, but that doesn't mean the person got away with it. Even on things, when you see on the court dockets and different things such as maybe the officer worked late last night and didn't come to court today, and it got dismissed out of district court, or a report didn't get turned in, or one of those kind of things. Those same cases can be indicted later and into Superior Court, because that's where it's going anyway. And so just because something got dismissed out of district court doesn't mean that it's over with. So we try to follow up on those things and get them into a district or into a Superior Court setting and make sure those things get prosecuted. And sometimes they don't. Sometimes there's problems with the cases. Sometimes there could be search warrant issues, or there could be arrest issues or things of that nature. But again, like the chief said, that doesn't mean we quit. We just go back after the person again,
And it's easy to pass judgment looking from the outside in, and you don't know all the details. Even with me, I share all of your press releases and things like that, but even then I don't know all the details from the start to finish of that whole case.
Right.
So it's easy to pass judgment not knowing all the details.
Right. And that's one of the things I had a conversation with a person this week, especially with social media. We had that conversation that a lot of people who make comments on social media and do those things, they make comments with either no information or partial information or very little information. and not understand the dynamics of things and how things come together in the big picture. And so we want to try to make sure that we're not out here just spinning our wheels, just doing misdemeanor cases and simple possession cases and a couple of selling deliveries and those type of things. But we want to develop the kind of cases that will send people off to prison, develop the kind of cases that will, as I said 3 years ago, cut the head off the snake and cut some of the drugs out of our area. But we have no delusions. I want to make sure that everybody out there understands. We have no delusions of making Cherokee County drug free and ridding the county of drugs. Don't know of anywhere in the country that's happened and been successful. If it does, I sure would wish they'd share their secret with us.
Absolutely.
Because I'd love for that to happen. But the fact of the matter, it goes back to that supply and demand thing. And I made the comment also this morning about this, is that if we went to everywhere in the county, got every piece of drug out of the county, took every piece of paraphernalia, every straw, every spoon, every needle, everything there is out of the county, and the county was 100% drug free, then in less than 2 hours it would be right back again, because you can just go across the borders to one of our neighboring counties or neighboring state, re-get your stuff, re-get your needles, re-get your spoons and paraphernalia, and start all over again. And so even if we did make it completely drug free, people that want it are still going to get it. They're still going to find it. So all we can do is do the best job we can do and put forth the best effort we can put forth. And I think not only our narcotics guys, but I think our drug guys have done a great job on that, and going out and doing the extra patrols and security checks and working on drug houses, making traffic stops and things of that nature. So I just think we did a great job, and I just encourage everybody that would, if you like what you have seen the difference in the sheriff's office from the way it was in 2014 and beyond, or before, to what it is now, please go out and vote. Go out and give us another 4 years that we can keep doing what we're doing. And hopefully some of these big cases that you can see those and bigger ones coming along. One other thing I want to mention real quick is talking about the drug cases. Also, the doctors from Georgia, Union General, they got indicted in federal court also. And so I think there was about 212 counts or something like that of obtaining fraudulent prescriptions there that they're looking at. And so those are things that they're probably going to get some very lengthy time out of. And so when you look in our court dockets, you see things dismissed out of state court. Some people are wondering, why are these doctors getting away with this? They're getting dismissed. They're getting out of here. No, they're just adopting in the federal court. So that's another example of how a little bit of time down the road, you see a bigger bang for your buck that's going on out there.
Is the day use center still in operation?
It is.
What days and hours?
They're doing it Monday and Wednesday, 10 to 2. I think they're holding off on the lunch on Wednesdays now to try to revamp that a little bit. So they're doing the lunch on Mondays. And so I encourage people to use that, and that gives us an idea of what we're actually seeing in our communities and what we can do to help people be productive members of society and get back into the workforce and all those kind of things. Offering drug counseling, clinical counseling, spiritual counseling, whatever people need. Help them get back on their feet, and hopefully we can cut that supply down.
And the location of that is the Murphy First Baptist Church?
The Murphy First Baptist Church. We're also looking for a permanent home for that, but one of the things we're doing is switching gears just a little bit and moving into the jail setting. And so we are working with some of our inmates on trying to get them started while they're in jail, and that way when they get released or get out of jail, they can continue on with those programs to help them stay on their feet.
All right, very good. And folks, reminder, the Kids Fishing Rodeo is planned for tomorrow, so make sure to go on out there, and that's located up on, just past the Marble Red Light, correct?
Right, going toward Andrews. Just go past the Marble Red Light to the dip, and it's on your right before you start back up the hill.
Sounds good. Any final thoughts before we close?
No, just remember, early voting starts April 19th. Go out and vote. You've got all the way to May 5th to vote, and then it's closed for a couple of days, and then you can vote at your precincts on May 8th. But if you early vote, you go down to the Board of Elections here in Murphy and vote down at the Board of Elections.
And today is April 13th, and it's the last day. Since this is a Republican primary, it is only open to Republicans and independents or unaffiliated. So if you want to be able to vote in the primary and you're registered as Democrat, you can change your registration. Today is the last day, and you can always switch it back to Democrat if you want to after the primary is over. But to be able to vote in this primary, you have to be either a Republican or unaffiliated, correct?
That is correct.
All right. Sheriff, thank you very much.
Thank you.
The preceding program was a paid political program paid for by Palmer for Sheriff. To purchase airtime on WKRK, stop by our business office at 90 Tennessee Street in downtown Murphy or call 837-4332.